All right, we're live, and well, we've been live for about 15 minutes now, but can you hear us? Before we start the stream, we're just going to do a quick mic check as usual, so I haven't changed any settings. Hopefully, I still sound fine. Johnny, how do you sound?
Yeah, hopefully you guys can hear me. So let us know.
Yeah, we'll just wait for a few yeses in chat, and then we can get to the stream. I think the delay is on normal. I always forget to change it. We could probably go like ultra low, but it's a Q&A stream. No one really cares, I don't think, as long as they get the questions answered. All right, we've got one yes. Do we sound okay though, Mick? Do we sound about the same volume?
Yeah. So yeah, let us know if we sound about the same volume, because we don't want to be me lower than you or other way around. So
yeah, if anything, I imagine you're higher, because people always say my mic is like quite low, but I have the controls on OBS, so I can always boost myself up if I need to. But people are saying, yep, we sound fine for both of us. Everything's good. Okay, I guess we can start. So I checked this time. This is number 9. This is number 9 of the GameDev Q&A live streams or whatever. And this time we have Johnny here, but quick first introduction. I'm Nathan, Dapper Dino. I mainly do Unity tutorials. Let's see, there's a similarity here with most of the people I get on the stream are all Unity YouTubers anyway. But I have the main focus of multiplayer networking. That's the main thing I tend to focus on, at least at the moment. And I also do have some interest in dots, which is something that Johnny here covers quite a bit too. Would you like to tell them about what you cover?
yeah, so my name's Johnny. My channel is called Turbo Makes Games. And so again, I do kind of all sorts of things related to Unity. Lately, I've been doing kind of some newer features to the Unity game engine, like Nathan mentioned, dots, ECS, all that stuff. But I do kind of like also having some just kind of more discussions about topics related to game development, whether that be like game design or maybe kind of like the business of game development.
Yeah, the channel link is down below. I mean, people probably expect that anyway, but in case you want to check it out, probably wait till the end of the stream. You can probably stay and listen to the stream before you check out the channel. And one thing I noticed you said there was about like the business side of things as well, which I find is quite interesting because not a lot of people cover that, if anyone. Like, I haven't seen anyone else. I saw the video on Unity IPO or whatever. Is it IPO?
Yeah,
is that
yeah.
yeah,
The initial public offering, yeah.
Yeah, because I heard about it happening. I saw it, whether it was just online on some social media or something, and then I thought, like, what does this mean for Unity? I know they've gone to be a public company, investment changes. I'm not big on the whole investment side, and I don't know how it all works and like investment and all that stuff. It's a bit beyond me, but from what it sounds like, one of the good things is there's a lot of now like public knowledge. They had to publish a lot of information that previously wasn't public, so it was quite interesting, like seeing all those numbers and stuff. But yeah, I guess that's it for the introductions. So let's see what people have to ask. So
Definitely.
First question we have is, how do we manage to learn programming so well in such a short period of time? That's a lot of shush. How in such a short period of time? Okay, well, you can answer that first if you want. We'll kind of alternate questions there.
I think for me at least, and I think this seems to work well for a lot of other people, is to really just learn by doing. You kind of want to go into this with like a clear objective, whether you want to make a game or some application or something like that. Just kind of figure out what your end goal is, and then kind of write out all the exact steps that you need to get to that end goal. And then from there, then you can kind of start to figure out what are the exact like topics of programming that you need to learn. And that'll also help you figure out if you need to make if you need to like use a specific game engine or programming language or anything like that, just kind of like based off of your final product. And then just kind of learn everything one by one, and the more experience you have, the better you'll get.
Yeah, I feel like with learning anything, if you're more passionate about it, and I've probably said this in previous streams, you will learn faster. Like, there isn't just a magic way to learn faster, but if you're passionate and you really want to achieve something, whether that's making a certain type of game or a certain mechanic in a game or whatever you want to do, you just will pick it up faster because you're having more fun, you don't get bored. If I've ever had to work on something that I've not particularly enjoyed, it will take longer, I'll get more stressed out, and I'll have to take more breaks to just like recover from it and then get back to it. But yeah, if you're having fun, programming, you could just go for hours straight and make loads
Absolutely.
of progress if you're really into it. So I guess the main tip is just I know you can't just make someone be passionate about something they're not passionate about. So I guess it's more of a, if you're doing something and you're not passionate, then maybe find something else that you are. It depends what it is, because I guess if it's like part of a job, you know, jobs aren't always fun and what you want to be doing. Sometimes they are, and I guess the goal there is to, you know, if you can have a job that you enjoy doing, then that's just a win-win, getting paid to do what you love. So yeah, if it's about hobby things, sorry, if your hobby and you're not having fun with it, then maybe look for something else. Or if your hobby is still game dev, maybe that genre of game doesn't appeal to you as much, or maybe the game engine isn't right for you. It could be, there's so many factors it could be. And I guess if you're early in your career, then just experiment. Or not even if you're early, just experiment anyway.
I think there's always kind of a way to find something that you're excited about within a topic, or something to get obsessed over. Kind of like you mentioned, I think getting obsessed with something is really important. So, you know, you wake up and you start kind of researching some things on the topics, or maybe even going over some things of existing knowledge just to kind of reinforce those concepts in your head, I think is really important. Also, one of the things that one of my programming teachers in college said is like, you know, you're making real progress when you start like having dreams about programming. It's like you'll go to bed and then you'll have some like dream about programming, and that's kind of like when you know that you know it's really ingrained in your mind and you're really making some solid progress.
Yeah, I feel like the most progress I had was probably when I was pretty early on in Unity, and I'd like learned the basics of how just C# and the mono behavior stuff all worked, and I could just go for hours and just make new stuff and just be like, make this new script, it does this, and then stick it on this, and then new mechanic. Even if it wasn't the most modular, reusable, best code, it made lots of stuff work and it was fun. So I was having a lot of fun.
Isn't that the best when you just like, you finally you're at the point where you have an idea of something and then you can just make that, like, you know how to do that.
Yeah, that's just programming in general, and that's why I love it. So yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that's why a lot of people really enjoy it. It's because it gives you the power to just make whatever you want, pretty much. Yeah, I think that's enough for that question. So, what else do we have?
Cool.
Yeah, given unlimited time and budget, what would be your dream game to make?
That is a tough one.
I guess genre or... Oh, go on.
I recently actually kind of came up with an idea of a VR game that I think would be cool to work on. I guess, how do I put it? Like kind of like a cyberpunk skateboarding type game would be the best way to put it. I don't know if that's like my complete dream game, but it would just be something that would be awesome to work on.
I feel like skateboarding in VR, at least with the current technology, I mean, I just throw up. Like,
I know, yeah. That's why I think the VR technology needs to progress a little more till we get consistent high frame rates in those small little headsets.
Yeah, and just like how the actual motion feels, because like having your character move and you not move, I think is the main bit that throws you off. And I already have like really bad like motion sickness, so when I played VR, I think I played Super Hot, and there was this one level in Super Hot where you like jump off a ledge or something, and that just made me like I didn't actually throw up or anything, but I really felt like, take off the headset, that's enough for now. I remember, I think everyone when they get VR kind of overdoes it. If you go for too many hours, you just feel sick regardless of what type of person you are.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, I haven't really had many long VR sessions, and I kind of do get the motion sickness as well, but it seems like if you're like in like a car or a spaceship or something like that, like it kind of makes a little bit more sense to my brain, kind of like what's happening. So it's not as bad, I feel like.
Yeah, I guess when you're in a car in real life, you are still, well, you're not actually still, but you feel relatively still, and then the car's moving. So that would not throw you off as much. But it's when you're like, you feel like you're controlling a human walking around, and maybe your walking speed is just off. I remember I was playing a game, I don't know which one it was, and using like the joystick movement on the controller to walk around, and it just really didn't feel right. I hated it. At least my stomach hated it. But yeah, I haven't touched VR in a while, probably about a year or so. I think the way I've like shuffled around my room and got a new bigger desk, it's kind of awkward to actually set it up in my room. But I'm hoping at some point to get like a bigger room and have just more dedicated space for VR.
Room scale VR.
Yeah. I did originally have it set up for my room, but yeah, this desk is a lot better. I used to have this really small, square, tiny desk, and I could have more room for VR, but I think this trade-off for a bigger desk was definitely worth it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know, what VR headset do I have again? It's been a while. I think it's the Oculus Rift, I think. I don't know how out of date that is, but...
I've got the Google Cardboard.
Does that have controllers with it?
So they did come out with like it's called like the Google Daydream, and there was like a one kind of controller that you could use. And so it was kind of cool what they did for like developers is they made it so you could take an old Android phone and essentially like emulate the controller off of that. So there's like kind of like a little circle area that you'd use as like a joystick, and then two kind of like button areas for inputs.
Okay, I mean, it's kind of like it's very accessible to people who can't have the full like setup, either like the room or the equipment, but both.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
It's like any person can just get this and then use their old phone as a controller and then have fun with VR, even if it's not like a proper full experience. I think like before you ever touch VR, I think everyone has that kind of fantasy of what it's going to be like when they try it. And then I'm not saying like, I don't think it was a letdown. It definitely wasn't. It was really cool at the start, but it kind of fades off very quickly. As with anything that's like new and exciting, once you have it, you're like, oh, like that was fun, but what's next? But like VR still has plenty way to go, so I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, so that was your game. I'm trying to think. I don't really have one in mind. I think I'd want to make an RPG, not an MMO. I'm not crazy, but like like a single player RPG with like
kind of action or turn based.
I feel like I like magic combat, fantasy kind of stuff.
Okay.
But the main thing that annoys me about the games I play, and even the ones I like, is the magic combat is very simple. It's generally like cast this projectile or this area of effect move. But like I want to make something a bit more interesting, whether that's VR with like casting in the air based on the like how you move the controller to do stuff, or even like just with a keyboard and mouse, you can still do a bit more. You could, I think, just like how the combos work or how you cast the spells, rather than just having a hotbar with 10 spells and you just hit the key and it does it. I feel like it's very underwhelming. It's like you don't feel like you're actually casting this fireball or doing this big lightning strike. You just hit a key. Oh, it happened. So I just want to make a game at some point where the magic combat just feels really good.
Yeah. Okay. That was like, have you ever played or seen that game, the Harry Potter Chamber of Secrets game?
I don't think so, no.
So it's like a movie tie-in game, and it's actually a really good game. I had a ton of fun playing it, back when I was much younger. But that was kind of like the spells you use. There would be like some kind of outline of the spell on the wall, and then you'd have to basically like drag your mouse around to like make that shape, and then you'd do the spell and would open the door or whatever.
Yeah, I feel like for the spell thing, the only good way to really do it, now that I said it out loud with the keyboard stuff, I think it would have to be VR, because it's the only good way to have the like drawing of the spells and the like pointing over there to like do it on that wall. Like I'm thinking of a thing where you do a certain spell to like summon like a rock out the ground, and then you have to like, I don't know, somehow point where you're doing it, or maybe it just happens in front of you. And then I've seen a cool VR demo on Reddit, on like the Unity Reddit, where someone had like an earthbending kind of demo where they would like summon rocks out the ground and then like punch it forwards at like the other person, and who could then like shatter it midair. And there's so many cool things. Yeah,
seriously.
This is making me want to just like quit the stream and just go back to Unity now and just start a new project. But I have been doing a lot of multiplayer stuff. I guess that would be a really cool like 1v1 kind of game. Like you queue up against someone else, and you have a little battle mage kind of combat thing.
Yeah,
that'd be pretty cool. Yeah, I think that's enough talking about our fantasy games now. What are our other passions besides programming?
Jiu-jitsu. I've been training jiu-jitsu for a couple years now, and it's the best.
Does it help with programming? Does it enhance your skills?
Not directly, but I feel like just kind of with any like type of physical exercise in general, it's really good and helps like so many areas of your life, because like as you progress further and you start like doing things that you didn't even realize that you were capable of, I think that kind of, you can see how that applies to so many other areas of your life. And like, you know, if you see that you're progressing in this area, you know, how can that apply to programming? And you kind of like don't get as overwhelmed about, you know, how little you know, because you know that you can keep learning more, keep getting better.
Yeah, and generally, like if something good happens in life, then the other things you do, you just feel better in general. Like, if you're succeeding in one thing, then the other thing you maybe not succeeding in as much, you have more motivation. I guess that'll help too. Just generally, you know, having hobbies and doing well in them just helps in general, even if they're not related at all. Like, obviously I didn't think, oh, of course they teach you some programming and it helps this special technique or anything, but yeah, I'm trying to think. I used to have more hobbies, definitely. Like at school, obviously I did sports. I enjoyed, I mean, obviously in England, cricket and rugby. I did enjoy playing them. I was a lot better at cricket than rugby, but I still enjoyed it. And then like I used to do like magic tricks, or like card tricks specifically.
Okay.
I always carried a pack of cards around, and always, like, if I was ever bored, I'd just get them out and just like do card maneuvers. And yeah, I don't know, what else did I actually do that I enjoyed. I mean, obviously programming, playing games, that's just to be expected. It's a game dev stream. I'm trying to think of other things that people don't know. I'd probably have to come up with a list here. I don't know, what else. I think that's still like, you don't need like 20 hobbies or anything.
No, yeah.
The hobby stuff definitely helped when I was at school and when COVID wasn't here and I was actually going out more. Like right now, my hobbies are just limited to making videos, coding, playing games, calling friends online and playing games. Like not much else is happening. Working on my own projects, like yeah, it's all just indoors now, which I don't have a problem with. I'm pretty content being indoors, but that's not to say I don't dislike going outdoors. Like I enjoy that, and I'm sure everyone's going to look forward to that in the next, I don't know, year. I'm not going to be the person to say when everything's going to go back to normal, but
right.
Yeah. What do we have here? Do we know of any good resources to learn more about workflows for team collaboration in Unity? Example, how to set up a project so an artist can create a model that is self-contained. I don't know what they mean by self-contained. I mean, most of the stuff I've worked on has been solo or in like very small teams of like 2 or 3 people.
Right. I'd say that's most of what I've done as well. But in college, I did for one semester take a course where basically like the whole class of like 60 or so people were working on one single game project. And then so it was kind of broken up into teams. So, you know, you'd have your concept artists, 3D artists, programming team. And then so basically we had a kind of a simple setup for all the programmers. We just, of course, use GitHub to, you know, commit all our code to. And then for the art, we basically just kind of had like a shared Google Drive where everyone would kind of like upload the art to. And then when we wanted to add all the latest art to the game, we just, you know, pull that down and directly import it to the project. So it was just kind of hacky, but it wasn't, we didn't need to get too crazy with it.
Yeah, I feel like my most recent experience with this has been the Unity Open Project. And yeah, I remember, I think you covered it. Like, I know a few people covered it. It tended to be the people who are more on the, I don't know, I guess programmer side. Like only a few people covered it, but it was also the people that I kind of guessed would cover it. But yeah, I had fun. I think I only did like two pull requests right at the start to help. Well, I did one to help test it. I was like the first public contributor. I'll hold that title badge. And then I also did, like, after that test one, that I didn't record any of that. That was just testing. And then I was talking with Chiro, the person who's in lead of it, and I was saying, like, you know, I do tutorials. I've done this. Should I make a tutorial on this? That would be cool for people to like know how to contribute for those who aren't familiar. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. And then I had to make another pull request. And the thing is, there wasn't much on the like codex thing of tasks to do. And the one I did first was like the simplest bug fix ever. that I'd already like done in one of my own projects recently, so I knew exactly what to do. And then
Nice.
when I came to make the one for the video, I didn't have anything in mind. There was nothing on the list that wasn't artistic, and I'm not artistic, and I didn't want to do any of those. And I can't remember what I actually ended up doing. I think it was some rotation thing where I think Chiro set it up with a controller, which has obviously analog input, so the character spun around smoothly. Then I was testing with keyboard input, and the character would just snap because it's not analog input really. So
Right.
I ended up adding like smooth rotation for the character, so regardless of controller or keyboard, the character wouldn't just snap. Yeah, so I just did that little contribution and then showed the flow and did that in a video. And I know they, for that project, have all the FBX, all the models and everything in the Git repository as well. It's all in that one place. And I guess, what was the thing? So the FBX model is self-contained. Yeah, I guess the thing is, if you have a model, this is from my limited knowledge of modeling, but I've done it a bit. If you have an FBX model and you export it into Unity, and then let's say you've got a prefab that references it or something, so there's probably a mesh filter and a mesh renderer with the material and the mesh setup. If you then go back into Blender, make a change and save it back, that should update in Unity. You shouldn't have to like now go through and change anything else. I think it does stay the same. So I've never had issues where
Yeah.
with that kind of stuff.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a motorbike outside. I never know like what kind of sounds people can hear on stream. There were fireworks last week. So there were fireworks all of last week, but only one day was like bonfire night or like Guy Fawkes, whatever. I don't know. There's fireworks the entire of last week. People were making memes about it.
Any particular reason, or just?
It wasn't just.
Excited?
I never found out, but I know people were getting really annoyed at it, and people were making like hashtag bonfire week, even though it's normally a day. But like, maybe people were just having fun with fireworks. I think it was because like we were going back into lockdown, like on the day of the bonfire night, which is normally when people would gather around, and it's kind of like a joint event. So people wanted to like maybe do it the day earlier before the new lockdown restrictions came into place. But then people kept doing it every day of the week, and it was so confusing. Yeah, I don't know. As long as people don't complain in chat about me having annoying sounds, then I'll just try and ignore it. What do we have here? Oh, hello, Turbo. Someone's... Wait, that was you. Wait, what? Oh, no, someone's pinged you. Never mind. I'm getting confused there. Please talk about the future of Unity. The future is Dot's runtime, question mark?
Yeah, so I think with Dot's runtime, he's referring to the whole Project Tiny thing. Are you familiar with that at all?
Project Tiny, I've very briefly looked at. Most of the Dot stuff I've done is just the other normal Dot stuff. Yeah.
No, same here. I think Project Tiny is really cool though. So yeah, it basically uses like a Dot's runtime, and the whole idea behind it is like the games that you create with that are supposed to have like extremely small file sizes, and they're supposed to run extremely efficient on your device. It's mostly meant for kind of like mobile, so it's not like chewing up a bunch of your processor and memory resources and just eating through your battery life. So I think it's really cool in that sense for mobile and even web games.
What about like Dots in general? What's your current status on that? Like
Dots in general, I do think it's a really excellent platform for certain use cases. It's definitely not at the point right now, I think, where you can make where it's really feasible to make any game that you want on it. But it seems like that's what they're evolving into, is they want to get to a point where you can make anything in Dots.
Yeah, I feel like right now, I had a play around with it back in February-ish. I think that was when the first like public preview stuff came out around then, or at least with some documentation so I could get in and understand what to do. And then I had a go at making my own little demos, and I think I made a few videos on it. And I think the main thing for me, when I saw it, I wasn't thinking about like the performance, even though that's a really good aspect. I was thinking also about like the architecture and not having this mess of like mono behaviors with references to other mono behaviors, and the way everything works. It just sounds so much better. The problem is right now, the actual syntax and just way you do things changes relatively frequently. And for example, if I want to, add in some UI to display the health for my player, I don't know any good way. Like normally I'd somehow have reference to the player or some event for the health changing, and the UI listens in for that. And but I don't know like the Dot's way of doing some of the things. So I know like you probably can have workarounds for a lot of these things, but I imagine if they want people to use it for like I assume it will be ready for all kinds of projects. It's not going to be left like this is only for super high end, you need a million things projects.
Yeah,
I feel like it wouldn't be worth the development if it was only for that niche. Because if they can make it so you can build, people are saying it's not going to be widely accepted because it's complicated, but once they get like some of these class names down from like 20 words to, you know, whatever, I think just a lot of this stuff is very confusing. Yeah. Once they get stuff down and more documentation and they start making their own official tutorials, and us as the tutorial community start making more videos when it's at that point, then I think the reason why people find it more confusing is just because they're not used to it. Like, if you think about it, like if you take a step back and look at OOP, it's pretty complicated and weird. It's like there's classes and inheritance and polymorphism and overriding, and I know like a lot of these things do kind of carry over to dots as well, like some of them do, but it's not like OOP is easy. It's just the thing you learn first, so you've got that ingrained in your brain, and now it's like, hey, it's a different paradigm that's much better in pretty much every way, but people don't like it because it looks a bit more complicated. And I think people should see that like if you can learn it and use it well, it means you can make a game and release it on practically any platform without even thinking about performance at all, because it'll just work. I mean, it's the performance by default is their motto for it or whatever.
Right.
So there's that. And the new netcode stuff is, I don't know how much you know about it, but apparently it's meant to support dots and the old game object monobehavior way. I say old, it's the current way. It's not old. It's not old yet anyway. But
well, even when dots does get more widely accepted, object-oriented programming and monobehaviors, they aren't going anywhere. I mean, you'll still be able to create, awesome games with those patterns and everything for, forever.
Yeah, I feel like as time goes on, it just depends really in the direction they take dots. Are they going to get it to the point where it ever becomes the same difficulty or easier to make a game using it? Because I feel like if people had two options and one was just better in performance but they were both the same difficulty, then you just go for the one that's better performance. The reason now you'd go for game objects is because you already know it, or there's just so much help online, so much documentation. It's tried and tested, and it's simple. Like, even for me, who, like, I understand dots at least to some extent, I can make some things with it. I wouldn't ever use it for a real project right now, because I don't think it's feature complete, or at least to make certain features with it, it's a mess, and it's not really ready yet. But like I said, the netcode stuff is looking interesting. I actually had a go with the dots netcode, and I am liking some of the features of it, and how the client-side prediction works, and the fact that, as well, multiplayer games are mainly, the main problem with multiplayer games is when you have lag and latency, and the dot stuff is just much higher performance in that sense. It will just make multiplayer games also run a lot better for people. I don't know.
I think that's going to be another great area is multiplayer.
Yeah, like just the speed of writing and reading memory, and I'm talking like I'm a professional here. I mean, I'm just saying all the stuff that I've heard on all the Unite talks, and from what I've gathered after playing with it, like just the way they manage data is just a lot better. And so I imagine it'll reduce latency, but also the performance will increase on both the server side and the client side. So as someone right now who's doing a lot of multiplayer using a third-party tool, because Unity doesn't really have an out-of-the-box solution right now that's working, well, that's not deprecated. When this comes out, I'm definitely going to jump on it. I think it's coming out for game objects before it's coming out for dots.
Okay.
But I don't know any time frame for that. No idea. So
yeah.
You just got to keep refreshing, or just keep checking back every day. Yeah, until I see 2021.1 new stuff. See, we're gonna come back here now if it comes out in 2020.1 and say, or 2021.1 and say I called it, but you never know. It might be another 2 years. Hopefully not. But
yeah, definitely.
Where were we? Question for both. Did you go to college? If so, is that experience worth the game devs?
So yeah, I did go to college for game development, and I think, the choice to go to college for game development or not is really up to you and what your goals are. What part of game development do you want to do? Do you want to be kind of more of an indie game developer, or do you want to be someone who works at a AAA studio? And what kind of role do you want? Do you want to be kind of more on the art side? Do you want to be more on the programming side? So I think those are kind of the questions that you want to start out with. And once you have an idea of that, then it can kind of help you make that decision of whether or not to go to college for game development. I think that if you do want to work in like a AAA studio, then going to college could be worth it. But I mean, it's a tough question to answer because you kind of have to know what someone where someone is at right now, and kind of what their goals are.
Yeah, I when I started, what did I start with? I can never remember whether it was like Python in high school, or was I teaching myself Game Maker language, or I don't know. However I got into it I was probably around 16, maybe 15, I'm not sure. And then from there, it was pretty much all self-taught. And when I got to the end of, I know America and UK, different school systems, and people will be watching from different places. So college, I'm trying to think, if they say college, do they mean American college or UK college? Because I think it's different. UK college is at age 18, no wait, is that right? I'm trying to think now. We call it sixth form. It's really confusing. I always talk to people from different places.
College basically comes after high school in America for the most part.
What age are you when you go to college?
18.
Okay.
Yeah. 18 to 22.
Okay, so that's like college for you is university for us.
Yeah.
So yeah, I went to our college, sixth form, whatever you want to call it, and that was where you do effectively 3 subjects. So I did maths, physics, computer science, and then after that you choose to go to university. So that'd be what you call college. And then I decided what a lot of people do is take a gap year. So I was like, okay, I took the gap year and I said to myself, I'm going to do my own thing. And if at the end of this year it's going well, then I'll just continue. And if it's not, I'll go to university and do computer science. Because I always thought if you know what you want to do and it's going well, then you don't need university. At least I think computer science is definitely an area where if you've got your own stuff going on and you've self-taught, university can be a little bit of a waste. You get the degree, but I'm on about the knowledge, and everything I've done so far, no one's ever asked for my university degree.
Yeah.
So I don't think I'm not going to say don't go to university or college. But I'm also not going to say you definitely should. I mean, I didn't,
right?
But it's not like you must now follow in my footsteps and do the same. It is,
it depends on kind of how you learn. So if you're going through school and you learn, when someone tells you this is exactly what you need to be focusing on, this is kind of the work that you need to be doing. Here's some well-defined projects that you should be working on. Obviously, college and university is going to be great for that. But if you're someone who works a lot better on your own, and even within college, you're going to end up working on your own and learning on your own a lot of the time. I think that's where kind of most of the learning comes from. And one thing that I did learn in college that was a benefit is just kind of learning how to learn. Because when you go there, obviously they can't teach you everything about every single tool imaginable. And then when you actually go into the industry, the tools could be completely changed and different than what you learned in school. So it's just kind of learning what are the main things that you need to be aware of in each of these tools, and where do you go to find the documentation and learn how to use them.
Yeah, like you said, I think the most important part is it depends on how you like to learn, or how you learn best. Because the stuff you said about one of the good things is it teaches you how to learn and do things yourself. Obviously that is definitely part of it. You're not like at high school where you've got a full timetable of lesson by lesson by lesson and you're always being taught by a teacher. There's a lot more you time to teach yourself. But at the same time, if you're doing self-taught, then that's all the time. I think one of the main advantages I've heard from people who have gone to uni or college is you learn things that you wouldn't have otherwise learned, because it's generally more general. You learn like different areas, whereas if you're doing your own thing, you tend to learn what you want to learn, which can be a good and a bad thing at the same time, because you can definitely get a lot more advanced in the thing you want to be, but at the same time you might just neglect a certain other area. So for example, like I haven't really looked into assembly language and any of like assembly stuff like that, and I know that's a topic a lot of university students cover, and when I think about it, it's like, well, they have some more knowledge than me in that area, but I don't feel like I need that knowledge, at least not right now. And if I ever do, then I'm happy to learn it myself. So yeah, if you're the kind of person who likes to take control in your own learning, I guess, like I mean complete control, because like you said, even at college, university, you still have plenty of control and a lot more responsibility than back in high school. But
absolutely,
yeah, it is just per person. A lot of people ask questions expecting a blanket answer that's just yes or no, but it is really dependent on you as a person.
Yeah, it's tough to answer. And yeah, one of the best things about my experience in college was that we took basically low-level classes in all disciplines of game development. So, I took like level design classes, 2D art, 3D art, animation, and you find out some things that you like about these different topics and some things that you don't really like. So for example, I figured out that I really hate 3D animation. it's just awful in my opinion. But the benefit of that is now when I do work with like 3D animators, I kind of understand the struggles they have and kind of the terminology to use, so I can, effectively communicate with them better, and then, be able to make a complete project, working with them.
Yeah, and I think the best way to round this off is that all these different people that you watch in the community, whether that's me or you or other people, the fact that everyone has had like kind of a different path shows that it doesn't really matter which way you go, you can still achieve what you want to achieve. You don't need to do it one way. It's not like if you want to be successful in game dev, you must go do this course at university, college, and then go get a job at like this type of company doing this role. It's not like that. It's very different per person. So I guess you just do what you think's right for you, and then
and even if whenever you like listen to interviews with different game developers, everyone has their own story about how they got into the industry. Some people be like, wanted to do it since they were born, basically, and other people like, oh, I was like an accountant forever, and then this opportunity popped up, and oh, hey, like now I'm making games. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. So it's not like looking for the answer. We're not going to give you the answer. It's just, it is what it is per person. So yeah, we don't want to like tell people live your life this way and this is how you be successful. It's not like that. So
exactly, it's your life. Make your own decisions.
Yep. What do you look at first when you start playing a game, be it AAA or indie? What's the first thing you look at?
Like, what do you mean? What do I look at? Like from a design sense, or whether I want to continue playing the game, or how do you interpret that question?
Yeah, however you want to interpret the question. You could say the main menu screen, or like the boot up
screen.
The splash art.
You look for that Made with Unity logo.
Yeah, I think the first thing, what it means is what is it you are looking for to determine whether the game is like a good game for you or not? Like, do you look for, I don't know, like an amazing soundtrack? Do you look for responsive character controls? Like, what is like the thing that's a make or break?
It's a tough question to answer. I wouldn't say I buy a lot of games, so usually when I do, I kind of have like a good idea of if I'm gonna enjoy this particular game, and if that's gonna kind of fit the particular mood that I'm in at the time. In general, I kind of like more the indie type games where there's a lot of experimental design going on and just kind of weird things like that.
Yeah, I like games with a lot of depth, that have like lots of mechanics or things to unlock and achieve. Like, just because there's stuff to achieve doesn't mean it's going to be good, but generally Like, I enjoy those kind of games where there's progression and something to go for. And I know that can then like lead to addiction. You'll just keep only playing that game. But I'm trying to think. A lot of the games I really enjoy roguelike games.
Okay.
I just like the whole aspect of you play it and then yeah, sure you died and that's your run over. But you might have made some progress, whether that's unlocking a new item that can appear in your run, or you might get like a 1% damage increase on your next run, or like an extra life or something. Yeah. I just like those small progressions, or even if it's just progression in knowledge, like the fact that you can complete the game on your first run, but you're just not going to, because unless you've fully researched the game somehow to that point. But even then, you need to actually experience the game, and then you need to learn how the enemies attack and what weapons do what. And this, I mean, every game varies, but I've enjoyed Enter the Gungeon, Hades, Risk of Rain 2. Those are quite a few I've played recently. There was another one, Dead Cells. Dead Cells is, yeah. Like, I wouldn't say roguelikes are definitely like the main games I spend the most time on, but they're probably the ones I enjoy the most when I get like a new one, because I don't know, it's just so exciting to go in and just explore all of these unlockables. Like, I think Dead Cells out of those was my most exciting. You enter that room where it just shows you all the collectibles in the game, like hanging from the ceiling, I think, and you see like you have one of them unlocked, and you're like, oh wow, there is a lot. I guess obviously just having this stuff doesn't make the game good, but that's the same with anything. Like, if you say, well, I like responsive character controls, where it's not like just because it has responsive character controls doesn't mean it's good.
Right.
But I think, is it Celeste? That's a like 2D game with like really good character controls. I've never played, but from what I've seen and heard, people love it. And that is like, that's what make everyone love the game. I mean, I know it's got really good visuals too, and I'm sure like the rest of the game is good as well. But that's like what everyone's talking about, I think, is the movement in the game.
One cool thing about that game is they actually released the source code for the player controller. And it's just like, you know, like 1,000 lines long, and there's a bunch of like hard coded stuff.
And it's in one script.
It kind of goes to show you that, you know, you don't need to worry about the best coding conventions or whatever to make a good game, because that's really what your goal should be, is to make a good game that your players are going to have a good experience with. Yeah,
they're not going to see the code. I guess if you're planning on adding, let's say, more things that use the same kind of code, and you know your life's going to be a pain because of this thing you've done, then maybe rethink it. But if it's one player with like one type of movement, I mean, you can just shove it all in a script. I can't say that I would, because I'd hate myself for it. I always like get annoyed at myself when I do that kind of stuff, if I do lots of copy and pasting. And 1,000 lines, like normally if someone did 1,000 lines, you call them crazy if it's in like one class doing player movement, and it probably does a bit more than just player movement. I had a look. I didn't bother reading through the entire thing, but I mean, if you can make a successful game off it, then there you go. I guess it wouldn't be encourage people to just do that, but it's, if you do that and that's the only way you can get by, then don't feel too bad about it, because people can be successful like that. And it's the same with like people say, oh, if I use Game Maker Studio, I can't make a really good game, but then Undertale was made in that, and that's like one of the most. It's like, that doesn't mean every game you make in there will be Undertale. No. So it doesn't really matter what engine you use. That doesn't necessarily like limit your potential too much. I'm sure certain engines might not have certain things, but if you're talking about like the big players like Game Maker, Unity, Unreal, maybe even Godot, they're all feature full enough to make anything you can think of, pretty much.
And it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier towards the beginning of the conversation, is just kind of look at the game that you want to make, and then look at the things that you need to make in that game, and then from there that can kind of help you determine if one game engine might suit your needs better than another. I mean, I started with Game Maker, wanted to make 3D stuff. That's why I went to Unity, and I've tried Unreal, but I didn't find there was enough benefits to go over. And then Unity just kept getting better, and now I'm like, I wouldn't use Unreal. And my experience completely mirrors yours. So
I mean, I tried actually using C++ instead of Blueprints, but then I just had problems with compile times and problems with Visual Studio and IntelliSense. And I know I'm not the only person that's had problems, because other people are saying, oh, you have to get this add-on to fix your IntelliSense, and then, oh, but that add-on's free for like this many months or this a year, and it's like, why do I have to get a third-party add-on to Visual Studio to be able to have IntelliSense for Unreal? Now maybe that was a problem of like a year or two ago, but still, I don't know. I think Unity is just a lot more beginner friendly, but at the same time, not for beginners. Like, it's not for beginners. It just is like able to be used by beginners. But you see AAA studios use it all the time.
Yeah.
Yep. How do you get the delay of packets? This is about client-side prediction. Well, in Mirror, there's no kind of out-the-box client-side prediction stuff, and I've looked around in the server. Like, if you have to kind of make it yourself, which isn't a reason not to do it, but it's just more work. With the new Unity netcode stuff in the like preview package, they have like out-of-the-box client-side prediction, which is really nice. So it handles like, I don't know, let's say you're syncing the player's transform or something.
Right.
You can set it to be, I can't remember like the names and the terminology, and this will probably change anyway, but you effectively set it to be owner. So let's say you're the owner and you move this thing, it will immediately move on your client just so it's really responsive, and then it'll send it to the server, and the server will then sync it to everyone else, and then they will move your player wherever you told them they should move, and then the server also sends that back to you, because the server has to validate, was your movement valid? You know, maybe you've run into a wall, or maybe you're hacking and it's like, hey, you know, you're not that fast, get back there or something.
Yeah.
And so assuming that, I don't know how much leeway there is in terms of, you know, if it tells you back where you should be and it's like 0.1 unit away, does it then snap you back, or does it wait? I think there might be a certain, because if someone's lagging, then there'll be problems there. And I think when you send these packets, you also send like what frame you're simulating on, and in dots you have worlds, right? You have like simulation worlds,
right?
And for the networking, it actually spins up two worlds, a server and a client world, assuming that you're running as a host on your machine. So if you're both, and then those can be on different frames at the same time. And like, imagine, I don't know, you're on frame 10 and you try and move. So you're telling the server, I tried to move here and I'm on frame 10. When it reaches the server's going to be beyond frame 10 now.
Right.
Because time has passed for that message to get there. So when it then gets back to you saying, oh yeah, you did move there, whatever, then it has to like take that into consideration. Yeah.
The further you've moved since that, you got the ping. Yeah.
It's a really complex thing to just explain right now without preparing. It's a kind of like a video topic I'd have to pre-prepare and have stuff written out to talk about. Otherwise, I'd say something wrong and someone would call me out about it. So this isn't a tutorial on this live stream, but point is, it's relatively easy to do with the new multiplayer stuff, and you can do it with other solutions, of course. It's just a lot more work on your end. So if you're up for that, then you can. Like someone just said, Unet deprecated. Yeah, it's been deprecated for like 2 years roughly.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the Mirror team, which is what I usually use, is like an open source revival of Unet. Like they took the Unet when Unity deprecated it, they made it open source. Mirror kind of took it, made a new repository, and then it's a community open source, like fixing all the bugs Unity left behind, adding in the features people had wanted and Unity just hadn't added. So they just basically revived it, and that's what Mirror is. So if you've used Unet and you look at Mirror, it'll be very similar in how it works, but it'll just be better. Bug fixes and new features and stuff. And I've been able to use it for all the things I've tried to make, but I've not tried to make, let's say, a like super fast, accurate first-person shooter where you do need like proper lag compensation, client-side prediction. What are all the buzzwords, like the rollback? Like when you're checking raycasting collisions, you've got to think like, let's say on my screen I shoot someone, and then I tell the server I want to shoot in that direction, and then the server's like, yeah, but that person actually didn't get hit when I checked. But then if I roll back, let's say you shot them on frame 7, I'm now on frame 11, I need to roll back to what was it like on frame 7? Would you have hit them? And then, there's so much complex stuff with it. Because you've got to give clients some compensation, like for their ping, because no one plays on 0 ping. So you can't just say, oh, I don't see it on this frame. You've got to store like the previous certain number of frames. And in dots, that's a lot easier because of just how the data's managed. It can easily store like entire scene loads of data for previous frames to look back on, but there's only so far it can go. So if you're really lagging, it won't have the data from that many frames back. So it'll just have to say, no, you didn't hit them, even if you did on your screen. So there's a lot. It's a very big topic. Multiplayer networking is a huge topic.
It goes deep, yeah.
It goes deep. So I'm going to stop talking about it because otherwise I'll keep talking till the end of the stream about it. Yeah. Have you actually tried any of any networking at all?
So that's funny because like the first game that I ever made, like I kind of just went through some of the basic, Unity rollerball tutorials, and I'm like, I got this. I can make a first-person shooter multiplayer game, right?
Easy.
So it was actually for a college project. I did kind of a multiplayer FPS game. I used Photon, and it worked pretty well for the most part. But it was kind of funny. There was like this one bug where, like if you jumped off of like a cliff or a platform or something like that, I think I set it to only update like once or like 10 times a second. So like as the player was falling, it like would just kind of render the player going like just like jumping down. It was kind of weird.
I'm guessing you had like position syncing, but maybe also physics on the player, or the player was trying to update its own position as the server was trying to sync it back, and it just kept going up and down, up and down, up and down.
Yeah, fighting with each other.
Yeah, I mean, I've used Photon. That was the first thing I tried for multiplayer, and it was the easiest to set up for sure, but it's also the fact that you need to make an account, and they host it, and then therefore if you use more than like 20 users, you got to start paying, and you don't have proper like server authority, and you can't choose to deploy a server build on this whatever web server, and then not web server, but like, well, yeah, you can use Microsoft Azure, Amazon Web Server, Google Cloud, whatever. There's all the different things that you can't do that with Photon. You're just using theirs and you're paying for theirs. And let's say I made my own multiplayer game right now and I wanted to have a play test with 100 friends, like maybe I made a battle royale or something. If I could find 100, I've not, this isn't like a leak. I just, no. Theoretically, then with Photon you'd have to pay because you can't go over that 20 user limit for free. Right. But with Mirror, as long as your kind of PC can handle it and your router, you could just host it on your machine and just have these 99 other people join and it would work. And you wouldn't have to pay a thing. You only pay once you actually deploy the server and you need some other company to host it for you. But if you wanted like just custom games where people can host a lobby and their friends can join, you have to really pay anything. It's just for external hosting. Or if you need to host, I don't know, like I think Unity, PlayFab, Azure, there's like some matchmaking thing. So you can, like, they can handle matchmaking for you, and it's pretty sophisticated. But I haven't had a chance to mess around with it too much. But I'm looking into this because I've made a few multiplayer tutorials now, quite a few, and people are wanting certain topics that I haven't learned how to do. I've covered all the things I pretty much know, and then people are saying, dedicated servers, matchmaking, blacklisting, like IPs and stuff, and like I'm sure I could figure out like a sloppy way to do it myself. But I'm like researching the proper ways to do it, like how you'd actually do it if you are releasing your game commercially.
Right, yeah.
But like I said, it's a deep hole, and let's not go any further in multiplayer.
Fair enough.
Scroll down. How do you earn your living? If that's something you want to mention. I don't know, it's just one of the questions.
So my day job, I'm a IT technician. So I do that, and then a little bit of income coming in from the game development stuff, but I wouldn't say that I live off that at all.
Yeah, like obviously I'm not like a huge YouTuber. YouTube isn't a lot of money. Let's put it that way. Ad revenue is nice, but it's just a bit on the side. Same with like Patreon and all those little things add up a bit. And then the main thing now is the like recent course we released with GameDev TV. Now, that's not been out long enough for us to actually earn any money from. And, we're not going to get into like the deal and the money into that. Just basically saying,
how much money did you make
we are making money off it. And it's only been out for like, let me look at the calendar, 2 weeks. It came out at the end of last month. So it's been out for roughly 2 weeks. Yeah, it was a lot of work, and we've put the deadline as this Sunday to fully finish it, because they usually release the course like nearly done, enough content so that people start on the course, and before they're finished, you've released like the final stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And the final stuff, which I've recorded it all. I just need to edit it before the end of the weekend, and it's to do with like lobby and joining through Steam. So like Steam doesn't host your game, but like normally if I wanted a friend to join, I'd have to port forward and they'd have to put in my IP, and normally you don't expect that when you're playing a game online. So Steam has their own like relay server, so you don't even have to change any of your gameplay logic in your mirror game. You just you swap one component off for the Steam component, and it just basically works. And then you can go onto your Steam friends list, right click, join game, assuming they're hosting a lobby, and Steam handles the connections and stuff. There's only like a tiny bit of boilerplate to write, it's not much, and you can just use Steam now without having to go into your router settings and change firewall and stuff like that. You know, I've done that in the past when hosting my own Minecraft servers for friends. But we can't expect people to do that, and we can't really teach it because every like broadband company has different settings. Like, there's no one size fits all tutorial for that. So, yeah, using Steam's pretty good because we're assuming everyone's using Steam, like probably if they're following this course, or at least if they want to get it so their friends can join. It's the easiest way to just have friends join. So yeah, that should be out by the end of the weekend, and then the course is like wrapped up. So yeah, nice. And I guess on the side of that, there's also like commissions and mentoring and stuff, like the odd job, you know, just calling someone, helping them out of a project, or like teaching them something, or whatever, right? There's like this odd thing on the side every so often. So yeah, I think those are like the different things. Yeah, the course is definitely like the biggest now, and it's got off to a good start, let's just say that much. It's been out for 2 weeks, and I think it's got between 3,000 and 4,000 sales. And
that's awesome.
Like, I mean, the launch is always like a big boom. Everyone's been wanting a multiplayer course in Unity for a long time, and then coming up, there's tons of sales. There's like Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Christmas, New Year. So yeah, we assume we're going to get a lot of people on board with that. But yeah, it's also on the channel, you know, I have the comments, and I'm like, oh yeah, I get the comment pop up every so often. I need to turn off notifications for the course because my phone is getting spammed with people like asking questions. I do go and check the questions, but I don't need a notification every time there's a question every couple of minutes.
You kind of got to match those things up and just kind of hit them all in one time. I think that's the best way to handle that. Yeah,
when I started the channel, I'd have like sub notifications on, so I'd always get a notification saying this person subscribed if they have subs on public, and I was like, cool. And after a while, I was like, stop. Like, it's just getting so many.
Actually has a notification, you know, some random person just subscribed to you.
Yeah, it's like at the start you think it's cool, like it feels nice to I gained a subscriber, but you get to a point where it then becomes annoying, but like not a bad. It's not the worst kind of problem.
You're still grateful.
Yeah, you're grateful, but you don't need to be pinged every time it happens. I keep my phone on mute most of the time anyway, at least like while I'm at home. But yeah, I think that answers the question. But you said IT technician? Is that for a company, for a school, for a like?
I work for a company. Basically, we basically provide IT services for small to mid-sized businesses in the area. So basically, like for companies who aren't big enough to have their own dedicated IT staff, you know, we'll provide remote support, on-site support, you know, all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah. So you say for companies that can't like hire a full-time technician, but they need like the odd bit of support, like we had this problem, and it's like just call whoever.
Yeah, if their computer's not working, they can give us a call, or if they need some new equipment, you know, we can go out there and set it up for them.
Yeah. Is this like a temporary? You plan on going to a different type of job because obviously you're very into the programming stuff, or do you want to stay in like the technician side of things?
So yeah, this is kind of like a temporary thing. I'm starting to get a little bit more into kind of like the game development consulting and contracting type of stuff. So I do want to transition more into that. I do a little bit of development at my IT job, mostly just kind of making internal tools for us, just to make, you know, our job a little bit easier, and that's been, you know, super fun and really rewarding.
Okay. Yeah, I think that answers that. What are we up to? Have either of us dove into the animation rigging package in depth?
Nope.
You hate 3D animation, you said earlier, I remember. So I was expecting a no, and I guess my answer is no, because it says in depth. Have I had a go of it? Yes. I did like a tutorial, maybe two, probably one. where one of the cool things about it is you can have an animation running like your player's idle animation, where they're not just static, they're actually moving, they're bobbing around, like they're breathing, right? They're not just stuck still. And at the same time, you can then have their head face some point of interest, you know, like you see in lots of games you'll have NPCs that are standing still, and as you walk by their faces just rotate to look at you. And as creepy as it is, you know, it makes them feel more real, because if they're talking to you, they're not just going to be staring to the side even though you're right in front of them.
Yeah, good point.
So you can easily set it up so that a certain like transform on your player, so the neck for example, or the head or whatever, like rotates so it faces towards a certain thing. And that's only like one simple example of it. It's also useful for like inverse kinematic stuff, so you see all those cool demos of scorpions and whatever other creatures people make walking around, where they just move the object, like they drag the parent and then the legs kind of figure out their own placements on the floor and stuff.
Oh yeah, okay.
I've not done that with it, but I'm almost certain you can. I think the point is, you can do inverse kinematics without it, but you have to do a lot of coding and boilerplate to set up joints and rotations and limits. But I think that actually has a lot of it in. So if you want to just make something with it, you can. Like I don't know if you've seen the official Unity thing that Andre made, the like monster that it's like a worm that goes underground and it comes out of the...
Oh, okay. He just put out a video on the Unity channel like a couple weeks ago or something.
Yeah. I think it's very recent. And that uses the package, so I think it's got an animation for spinning, and then he makes it so the kind of tail has the bones, and then based on how it moves, the tail kind of follows accordingly. So it's kind of procedural, because all he has to do is just move the object itself, and the tail kind of follows by and animates and rotates. Awesome. So it is pretty cool. I just haven't had much time to look into it, because I don't spend a lot of time doing animation.
I mean, I'd be down to play with that, as long as I'm not doing, little keyframes and all of this.
Yeah, that's one of the things that it avoids that. Like, you probably, for the most part, want an animation to go with it, because this kind of overrides whatever animation you give by default.
Yeah.
Like I said, with the idle thing, I don't know how it works under the hood, but I guess the animator update happens, and then this update happens to override it. Because if this happened first, then the animator keyframe would snap it back to just part of the animation. So, they've got that all sorted. It's pretty easy. Just download the package, chuck on some components, and change it. And yeah, it's a fun package, and it is very useful for making cool effects.
Cool.
Someone said, I'm making primarily 2D stuff. Do you even remotely enjoy 2D games? I mean, you said earlier you hate 3D animation. Does that imply that you like 2D animation or 2D games?
Actually, most of the games that I've been making recently have been 2D. So yeah, I definitely do enjoy 2D games. And, I think 2D animation's fun. Obviously, I'm not really that good at it, but just kind of, moving little things around, I'm kind of okay with that. But I like 2D stuff for my tutorials, especially just because it's pretty simple to throw together, a little 2D project that looks pretty good, and that's really all you need to just display some programming concepts.
Yeah, I enjoy 2D games for sure, but I don't enjoy making them. I don't know. And like you said, it's really easy to just chuck in some 2D stuff and get something working. Like, for myself at least, I find it easier to start with a 3D template and just chuck in some 3D stuff and get it working. I find it's easier to jump into Blender and make a quick model than it is to jump into a photo editing thing or drawing software and make a quick sprite. At least one that I can't draw. Like, I think I used to kind of enjoy it, and then I realized no, I don't, or at least I don't want to. I find, like, obviously with drawing you have layers, and that helps you edit stuff that you did a while ago without messing up the stuff on top.
Yeah, no, I like that. Yeah.
At the same time, with modeling, you can select each individual object and just tweak it by a tiny bit, and like you can edit everything effectively. So it's never really too late to go back and change something. I mean, there are certain things that like you in Blender you can like apply modifiers, and once it's applied, it's applied. So sometimes people will make a backup, like just before they apply, they duplicate their object, turn it off, and then apply and work on the new one. And if they ever realize, damn, I wish I'd changed some setting before I applied that modifier, well, you can just go back. So yeah, I'm not like an expert at Blender, but I've used it enough to use it for my own projects and be happy with it.
Okay.
But yeah, I had someone message me the other day saying like, hey, can you work for me as a like 3D artist or something, and I'm thinking, you don't know me
Have
at all. I
you
am
seen
not.
my channel?
It's like I don't do any of that. I mean, the only cool model I have on the channel is this like character, which isn't even one I've made. It's the like Mixamo character. You may have seen it. Like,
Oh yeah, okay.
everyone uses it because it's just free and there, and it's easy, and it just works with all those animation packs. So it just makes stuff look more interesting.
I'd say for me, like a lot of the game jam stuffs I do. I participate in the ones where you have to make all the art and everything, and for me it's a lot easier to just jump in a 2D program. I've got a little drawing tablet, and I mean I'm not really an excellent artist, but I can make some cool just simple little cartoon stuff, and I think that works pretty well for the most part for me.
So I've got like this drawing tablet, but that doesn't mean I'm any good. Like I actually originally got that for playing, I don't know if you've heard of the game Os or Osu. It's like the rhythm game. I genuinely bought that ages ago. It's a really cheap drawing tablet. Is that mine. Like a proper? Yeah, it's a proper graphics tablet.
Wacom Intuos.
Yeah, because it's got an actual screen on it, right? Or is it?
This one is not. No.
Oh no. Okay. Yeah, because I know like the proper artists, they like the graphics tablets where you actually see a screen on it, and I can imagine that's a lot more useful. Like if you're drawing on a piece of paper, you see your pen and the line you leave behind. I find with this, it's weird because you're looking at your screen, but you're drawing to the side. It's a little bit weird. But I understand, obviously, it's a bit more expensive if you want to now get a screen put into this piece of plastic. So to get an actual monitor.
Back a couple grand.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the ones I've seen, I don't know which company it was. I think I have no idea. But they were about like 200 or 300 quid for like the lowest ones, and not like they were bad quality. They're just like the smallest screen size. But even then, you don't need a huge screen.
Sure, they're definitely budget options. So yeah.
Yep. That's 2D stuff.
But I definitely do want to get into more 3D stuff. So expect that on the channel.
Yeah. Someone says, "What do you think of Buildbox?" They say making games doesn't require code. Is Buildbox like an asset or an engine that doesn't require? Are you googling it now? Yeah. I don't know what Buildbox is. Yeah. I mean, I guess as a general question, like, what do we think about visual scripting, I guess? Or, like, making games without code? I mean, obviously, as programmers, I mean, I like to code, and it is faster for doing certain things. I've tried using Bolt, and for certain things, it's nice. For the state machine stuff, I like it. But for just general scripting, like logic, I find it's a lot slower because I have to search through the little finder, find the function I want, drag it in, hook it all up, where I can just type, done. Like, normally. So for the most part, I like coding myself, but that doesn't mean, I know I mention this every time, there's some people like the coding elitists who believe you should code everything, but in that case, why using a game engine? Like, code your own game engine, code everything from scratch. One of the whole points of game dev and programming is making tools, like editor extensions, or, I mean, think, people use the animator state machine rather than coding animation states and all that stuff, is because it's so useful and it's easy to just chuck in new states. If you're making a dialogue system in a game, you'd code the dialogue system and then you'd use the tooling to make new dialogues. You wouldn't like hard code every dialogue as its own like class or something, which I've seen some tutorials do in the past, and I've just thought, no. I've not said anything, but I'm thinking, like, yeah, it works, cool, but you probably don't want to do that if you're going to make 100 different dialogues or 1,000 different dialogues.
And then if you want to add in like localization and all that,
go into your code editor and like add support there. Nah. Like, I mean, have you seen the new localization package? It's actually really cool.
I haven't.
Like,
no.
It's really simple, and obviously it's like out of the box. It's not some third-party asset. I always wondered, like, I'll get around to adding localization at some point. I'll have to find some asset or make my own system, and then Unity have brought out their own, and I'm like, oh, well, this is easy enough, and it works. You effectively make like a table. I think you can import Excel spreadsheets because a lot of people use Excel spreadsheets for that. But you also get like an in editor kind of spreadsheet thing, and you just like have your rows for your columns for your languages, and then your rows for your like keys, and then you do your translations, and then on a component, let's say a text element, you stick this thing on and you say which one it's meant to be. So let's say it's the game title. Well, I guess the title wouldn't change based on the language probably, but let's say it's the start button. So the start game button changes the language, and then you just hook it up to say like, I think it has like an event that passes through a string. So then you just call like text, like you just set dot text basically. You can do it all in the editor without having to like write a script for it. And it even allows like I don't know what you call it, but like dynamic strings where you can have variables in the string as well, but it also be localized. And yeah, it's really cool. I think Mick and chat just linked it actually. I think it's still in preview, and they said this will probably be coming out with the new UI stuff. I think like early next year. I'm not sure, but I was reading on the forums about it all because people are saying like it already seems finished. Like it doesn't need a lot of features. Localization is pretty small compared to everything else they're working on, and when I tested it, it worked fine and it had everything I expected it to have. So I don't know. It's almost ready, I guess.
Cool. Yeah.
But then if you want to use it with dots, I have no idea. That's one of the things. They're developing these cool tools, but then it's like, oh, but then you want to do it in a dots game, and it's like, well, there's no support yet, and will there be, and how's it going to all work together? So
yeah.
Only time will tell.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But so I guess as far as visual scripting goes, I think it's a great way to get into game development. Like I said, that I started kind of in Game Maker. And so I think that was just a great way for me to understand kind of like the logic of how games work without being overwhelmed learning programming at the same time. I think it's just really good to, just kind of learn how games are actually made and how you can make things do things on screen.
It also allows some independence for like artists if they want to. Like, let's say you're a map designer and you want to have a part of the map where the player steps on something and it triggers something else. Yeah. Assuming that logic already exists and it's maybe just like playing an animation when they step on something. Well, they can just like plug and play basically everything.
Yeah.
And I mean, there was already the asset that existed for it, like Playmaker, and now there's Bolt. Well, Bolt already existed, but now it's acquired by Unity and it's free inside Unity and being developed by them. So, I mean, a lot of people, I haven't used Playmaker, but from what I've seen of the two, Bolt looks better, and now it's free, and it's been developed by Unity as well, or like with Unity. So I just imagine Bolt's just going to get better and better. So maybe in a year's time, I might use it more than I do now. But I like the state machine because the Unity state machine is kind of built just for animation. Like that's the purpose. You can add, like state machine behaviors, but they were never actually intended to have much gameplay logic in there. And it gets really messy. Like you're going to have so many state machines. Like imagine you've got, 100 different enemies and they all have different state machines, and then they have, let's say, 10 different states each. So now you have 10 times and however enemies, like 10 times the 100 different types of enemies. So you've got 1,000 different scripts for all these different state machine behaviors, and you can imagine that it's not something you want.
It's messy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not really designed for game logic. I've seen people do some cool like boss tutorials with it where like the boss has multiple stages and they use the state machine, but that's not to say you have to use that to do it, but it's a way to do it. And if you have like one boss or like a few enemies, it's fine. It's when you scale up, it's one of those things that becomes an issue. But yeah, visual scripting, good if you want it, not good if you don't. I don't know. I know a lot of people just hate it no matter what. I'm not on that side of things, but I don't use it that much
either.
Yeah.
But I could be wrong. It's either Playmaker or something else different entirely. But I know that Unity does plan on having some sort of visual scripting language that is built with like a Dots backend. So I think that'll be when Dots starts to get more approachable, is when they come out with that kind of visual scripting language where you can take advantage of all that.
That already exists.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, back when I started looking at Dots, it was in like experimental preview on the forums, but people were showing screenshots of like a visual scripting tool, and it compiles to Dots, and you get to see the actual Dots compiled output.
Oh, okay. Is it Playmaker or is it something else?
No, it's their like out of the box solution.
Okay.
So like they started building that, and then people were wondering like, okay, well, Dots visual scripting's coming, but there's no like game object normal visual scripting in Unity. There's only third-party assets like Playmaker, like Bolt. And then I think like from what I've read on the forums and in the server, people have first of all questioned like why was there even the Bolt acquisition, but it's because people already love it. Like it's really popular and it's good, So rather than Unity, developing their own system, they've kind of just adopted that one. And I don't know, I think they've said they want to have like one kind of UI for it all, because they don't want to be like, oh, if you're using dots, your visual scripting tool is completely different to if you're not using dots. Like, they want it to be somewhat similar so that you can go between one and the other without having to relearn it effectively. But yeah, I think it is going to be a bit of time before that's there, because they said they were making Bolt 2, but then now they've said they're not making Bolt 2 and they're just going to upgrade Bolt 1 over time. I don't know. Everything's all over the place. It's hard to keep up with everything. Yeah. What next? If I had to choose, which one would I pick between Blender and pixel art or Magica Voxel? I mean, we can both answer this. Like, I mean, I think we've already said, I mean, you prefer, like, if you're jumping in something to go for the 2D. Would that be, like, pixel art style or just, like, normal 2D style? Like,
I usually just use Photoshop. It's just easiest for me. That's what I'm most familiar with.
Yeah, I mean, the voxel thing, I think I've tried it once. I think it's just it's literally just a tool where you jump in and you, I don't know. I mean, if people don't know what voxels are,
Minecraft.
Yeah, it's basically Minecraft. I mean, voxels are just cubes. That's my definition. Yeah. I don't know if I'm technically correct there, but it gives it a Minecraft feel, very blocky, and you can then just export from that into Unity, and then you've got your thing there. But I don't know how well that supports animations and stuff, because if you're modeling a proper character, you actually have bones and rigging and animation stuff. So I think it might be all right to get some quick voxel, like, static assets in your scene if you want, like terrain and like trees and walls and things that don't move. But I don't know.
Yeah, for me, as far as 3D stuff goes, when I was in college, I had a license for Maya, Autodesk Maya, and you know, it was super intuitive, and it was like, you know, a really excellent tool set, but you know, obviously it's pretty expensive to buy a license for that.
Yeah, I think people like said, you know, Blender for a while was the free option, and then Maya's the good option if you had the money, but or like available license. But over time, like, people are now saying, you know, Blender, that's one of the things about open source projects, is like they tend to sometimes get better than the private, like, paid assets, just because so many people can work on them. They get like new features out faster, they get bugs fixed faster, and they're free, so more people use them, which then helps with the more people finding problems and adding new features. It kind of just snowballs.
Yeah,
and
get support available. Yeah.
Now Blender, as far as I'm aware and from what I've seen, is just downright better. Now, that's not to say like, oh, then everyone should stop using Maya, because there's plenty of like films, let's say, that use Maya.
Yeah, I'm sure that's probably still like kind of one of the go-tos for that high-end professional work.
Yeah, especially because you then have to relearn to use Blender. Like, if you already know Maya,
Blender was quite a bit different when I started experimenting with it. It was quite a bit different than what I was used to with Maya. So I never really went too deep with Blender.
Yeah, I mean, put it this way: if you're like getting into game dev and you don't want to buy Maya, like, I don't see there's a need to buy it. I think for people who already know it and use it and who are experts, it's perfectly fine. But for people who are getting into game dev, one, you don't have to pay for Blender, and also it generally gets better support faster, and it's just improving at a much faster rate. And again, open source, free, all these things are good. So yeah, I'd recommend that. And that's what I would use. I use Blender for pretty much everything I do, like modeling related, which isn't a lot because I'm not a modeler, but when I do, I use Blender. I don't know if this is the same person who asked it before, but someone's asking, how are we? That's a nice little break question there. I mean,
doing well. It's an exciting day. We got a console launch in the States here. The PlayStation 5 is out today, so exciting day to be a gamer.
I keep picking up my drink and it's empty, so I'm like, oh, just sad. Someone probably noticed earlier I went to pick up my drink and I tipped it up and like nothing was coming out. I was like, oh, awkward. Doing it on stream, everyone's watching, but no one probably noticed. I mean, what's that you're drinking out of? What's that thing on the side of it?
Oh, this is just the cap.
Oh, from how it looked like I don't know, it looked like it was something stuck on the side. It was like a weird, like, I don't know, a dial of some kind.
Vessel.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's interesting, but no, it's just a lid.
Well, how are you doing?
How am I doing? Well, today, I mean, I've been doing some recording. Been doing some like working on a project in Mirror, like messing with some multiplayer stuff. What else? I know, yeah, that's been it. I've just been and also one of the people I've been doing like multiplayer consultancy with, fixing some bugs, helping them out with that. So yeah, just doing like a lot of multiplayer, and now here talking about Unity, talking about multiplayer and dots, and
nice.
Yeah, finally after this I can give myself a break. So yeah, I'm doing good. I'm just getting to the end. It's 20 past 8 p.m. for me now, so yeah, I need to go relax after this.
Nice.
Yeah, time zones are fun. Like whenever I reach out to someone who's in a different time zone, I'm always worried it's going to be a really awkward time in the day for them. At like, for you, it's like 11 a.m. right or something.
Yeah, it's like noon right now, so right in the middle of the day.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I started at 7 for the streams is because whoever I streamed with first wanted to do 7, so I just thought that works for me. So I just went from there. Yeah. And then this week I tried to get like 3 people, and no one could do Wednesdays, which was the day I was doing. And then eventually I was like, I'll have to compromise and go for Thursday. I just have to.
Yeah.
It's like, it's what it is, As long as I tell people enough in advance, I think it's fine. We have to work around not just my schedule, but also whoever I'm trying to stream with schedule. It's better having a stream a day delayed than not having a stream at all. So, yeah. Okay, back to other questions. I'm making a roguelike with thousands of guns. How do I streamline the coding and art process? Well, do you have any pointers on that?
I mean, for coding bit, I definitely just kind of make everything as generic as possible and as modular as possible. So, you can kind of basically just kind of plug and play behaviors. I think you really want to make everything kind of data oriented. So, you have all your different logic separated out, and then, depending on the different types of guns, you can kind of pick and pull different aspects of logic from that. As far as the art goes, I mean, I think, making things modular as well. If you have like different parts of guns and stuff that you can kind of swap in and out to make all kinds of different creations, that's definitely going to help you. So, you're not making like actually making thousands and thousands of guns, but maybe they're making, dozens of different parts, and you can combine those in, many ways so that you have thousands of guns.
Yeah, I mean, that's more about like the design of the game and how you want the weapons to be. Maybe you do want like 1,000 unique things, which on the art side, you will have to make 1,000 different. I don't think there's any, you can't have 1,000.
If that's the case, maybe go hire a couple artists or something.
Maybe, yeah. But as for the programming, like you said, if you look at your different weapon designs and what, by designs, I mean logically what they're going to do, you'll find there'll be a lot of overlap. There might be, out of those 1,000, 200 that just shoot projectiles. Maybe they shoot different projectiles. So if you just make, like you said, modular components, so a projectile launcher that has the settings for fire rate, how many spread, all the various things you might tweak with projectiles, and then you can reuse that on every single instance of these different guns and just tweak all the settings, and then you'll have a prefab drag in for a reference for a prefab for the projectile, and then for your projectiles you can have reusable code. If they deal damage on hit, you can have a like deal damage on hit component that just you tweak the damage on hit and whatever, like, and then you've made like 2 scripts, and from those 2
damage
scripts
over time or something, and
from those 2 scripts you can make hundreds of guns, like just by tweaking the settings. And then maybe you're like, but this weapon, I'm thinking of like Enter the Gungeon, they have lots of different laser weapons, they all work the same way, just generally with different settings and different visuals, and like the different beams have different lengths, or like they're different like damage per tick as the laser's hitting you, and all these different things. They're not going to code a separate script for each one, because that would be insane if you have 1,000 guns. I think Enter the Gungeon, no idea how many they actually have, but they have in the hundreds for sure. I don't know. I don't think they quite reach 1,000 probably, but there's a lot.
Wasn't that I think like Borderlands 3 had like some ridiculous number of weapons, but I mean they were just kind of different combinations of components.
Yeah, I was very hyped for Borderlands 3, and I think me and one of my friends who was also hyped because we played Borderlands 2 as well. But like we complete it very quickly. And yeah, they advertise billions of guns. The difference is obviously they didn't mean billions of unique guns, but it was more to do with the fact that I think in maybe the previous games, the guns had been a lot more predefined. There was a lot more randomness in these guns. It's like you get a certain gun, and then the guns have like manufacturers, and then based on if I mean, someone can correct me if I'm wrong here. It's been a while, but the different manufacturers change how the guns work. So a certain manufacturer will make the gun when you reload it, you throw it, and it blows up like a grenade. And then another manufacturer is your gun has 2 modes, whether that's burst fire or like just single shooting or automatic or whatever. And yeah, the point is each one has something different. One of them was like while you're like aiming down sights, you get like a little shield, a frontal shield. So how it would work is you pick up this gun, and the manufacturer might be randomized, and then that means you've now got a sniper with like a shield on the front, and then that sniper. So
kind of little attributes, kind of.
Yeah, it's like there's like always the same base guns, like the different ammo types. So if that's like sniper, shotgun, pistol, whatever, and then all the components on it were randomized, which then led to probably billions or however many they said of different possible combinations. But they didn't have, like, in their prefabs folder, billions of different guns. Yeah, no. And I know they weren't using Unity, so it's not a prefabs folder, but whatever. They were using Unreal, I think. Unreal 4.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. What else have we got here? What time is it? It's 8:30. We can go for a bit longer. Can you guys touch upon turn-based games and 3D environments working together? So, I mean, turn-based could obviously mean a lot of things. It could mean like a card game, but if you say 3D environment, I guess you mean more like Final Fantasy type, where like it's turn-based because you might come across an encounter and then that happens in the 3D world. I don't know. It's kind of hard to interpret the question.
I was actually making kind of a 3D turn-based game a little while back.
Coincidentally.
It was kind of like a turn-based tactics game. So, you know, you had like basically a grid, and the idea was you'd select different athletes of different sports. So you'd have, you know, like a basketball player, an MMA fighter, football player or whatever. So you'd kind of pick your lineup, and it was essentially like a multiplayer turn-based game where you'd kind of move around and attack different enemies. And so I actually did the multiplayer basically just kind of myself using like Unity web requests, and it would essentially just call some like PHP scripts that I had stored on a server, and that would communicate with like a SQL database. So that was kind of fun to experiment around with. And then the 3D aspects of it, I kind of did like a Paper Mario type style. So I had like basically like 2D characters that were essentially just like a cutout in the world, and then wherever the camera was, they would kind of like billboard to like be always facing the camera.
Yeah, I've seen some people do that style, like the 3D world with the 2D characters, and it's unique. Obviously, I mean, it's different. I don't think I've ever played any games like that. I might have at some point, but yeah, I mean, like the question is, what was the question exactly? Just can we touch upon turn-based games and 3D environments working together? I mean, I don't see why a 3D environment and a turn-based game can't work together. I don't see any like hurdles you have to like overcome to make that work. Because unless they mean by turn-based game like 2D and therefore in a 3D environment, like you said, I guess turn-based by definition doesn't have to be 2D.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that's it. Do we like Godot? Have you ever used Godot or Godot? I don't know the official pronunciation, but I think it's Godot.
Yeah. No one knows. I have not though. No.
Never opened it.
I don't have any experience. Never opened it. I'm aware of it.
Yeah.
I've seen some videos of people online who use it, and they seem to be pretty happy with it. So,
yeah, because like we said with the open source thing, over time, you know, it can like pick up and snowball because it's free. People use it. It then grows faster, and bug fixes tend to get done faster, and new features tend to get added faster. And then because of that, people are happy with it, so more people get it, and it snowballs. So obviously, right now, Godot is not, I would say, at the stage of Unity and Unreal in terms of like competitively, you know, like sure, that's not to say you can't use it and make a good game. You know, that's never like what I'm trying to say. But yeah. There's a reason why more people will use other engines, even though that one is like completely free. Like you don't have to pay money to the company. It's not a company, it's an open source project, but it's like always free. You get all the money of your game that you've sold, and you don't have to pay royalties. And what else is there with Godot? Like the main things about it, I think it supports like tons of different languages. Like you can use
I think you're right,
their own scripting language, which is some like a Python-like syntax, and then there's C#, C++, JavaScript. I can't remember. I swear.
I think you can use like a bunch of the .NET languages, like probably like Visual Basic and stuff.
Yeah, I can't quite remember, but when I looked at the list once and then looked again, they'd added like an extra language or two. It was a long time ago. The download size, that's the thing. The download is like, it's just a single executable and it's really small. Obviously, over time, it'll get bigger as they add more stuff, but like it's still really small. And you can stick it on a pen drive and just run it on a pen drive, and you know that's one like appealing thing. You could go download it now in like a couple seconds and just have a play of it. And I had a little go of it. Yeah, sure. Like understanding the UI and the different names for the same things took a while, but yeah, I had never played with it more than like an hour or two. I just thought if I'm actually wanting to make progress on something, I want to just go back to Unity for now.
Exactly.
But I'm not dismissing it in the future. Like it does look good and promising.
Sure,
yeah. What else have we got? Someone says, I'm trying to create a bit of a fighting game. The idea is that there are two ragdoll characters, and the game pauses between turns. Lets you choose your next move, then unpauses for X amount of frames to run the animation before pausing again, allowing you to pick your next actions. Oh, so was that about the turn-based 3D
I think
world?
so, yeah.
Okay. I mean, when you say ragdoll, obviously, normally ragdoll would just mean the character just flops to the ground. Like, maybe the player dies and you swap out their model for, like, their ragdoll model or the ragdoll prefab, and they just, like, get knocked back and go flying or fall down a cliff or something. As for this, it sounds less ragdollable and more... I don't know.
It kind of sounds to me like he was making something basically kind of like a turn-based version of like Fall Guys or something like that. So it's kind of like probably like physics-based movement, you know. So you're kind of running around and your guys, you know, arms are flopping everywhere or whatever, and you can kind of like, you know, maybe go to push someone off, but then your turn ends and then it's their turn and they can kind of run around and, you know, maybe because you're already kind of leaned over that they can knock you off now. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, they said Final Fantasy would make sense as an example, but it's more like set animations. Because obviously in Final Fantasy or those kind of games, you'll see a character and it'll like dash across the battlefield to its target and it'll go / animation and then go back. That kind of idea. Whereas with this, it sounds more about you like physically, your damage has been dealt by like a collider hit and then like the knockback is calculated in somehow. But I'm not like, I haven't got the same vision as they have probably for this. Like if I saw it, it might make more sense. Because I'm thinking, well, if you had proper physics and then you hit them and then they're like not in the same place anymore, so when the fight next round comes, when it comes around to the next round, you're not there anymore, like you've been knocked away. Like maybe that is what you want. He says yes, exactly. So maybe that is what, I don't know, it sounds interesting. I mean, that's like we said earlier, having a unique idea is pretty cool, and I've not heard of this kind of idea, so keep going with it. It does sound really cool.
Run with it.
Yeah. Have we got any other questions in here that I missed, or is there anything else on your mind that you'd like to chat about? Anything? Is there anything new with Unity or any features? I'm trying to think. Like, what is there? I'm trying to think. Well, like, there's all the new UI stuff. There's localization. I'm trying to think of like the preview packages and stuff. I mean, dots we've already talked about probably enough for this stream. What else?
There was one kind of cool feature that I was looking forward to, and I hadn't really heard much on it since. But it was just kind of like Unity was going to have like a built-in way where you can make kind of generic splines, and then so you could basically have objects fall along those paths, or spawn objects along that kind of spline path. Have you heard anything about that?
I feel like I have, but I can't say yes because I don't actually remember. Maybe just you mentioning it is why I think I've heard of it. I'm not sure. I know
it was something that I saw in like a preview a while back, and I was like, oh, I'm really looking forward to that. Like, I think that'd be cool to have, but I haven't really heard much since.
I've seen the spline for like 2D terrain where like the ground curve, like you can grab like a certain part of the spline and move it up a bit, and the ground properly bends to it. So right. I've seen that, but I don't know if that's purely for like some 2D terrain stuff, or if it's like general purpose, like you said, place a spline, spawn enemies across it.
Yeah. This seemed to be kind of like a more generic.
Do you know where you heard about it?
It was in some either blog post or video about upcoming features in one of the next versions of Unity.
I don't know. Maybe I did see it. Maybe it is the thing I'm thinking of, but I can't say for sure. Um, what else people are chatting about? How would you handle inheritance with mirror? Is composition better? Trying to think like how I'd interpret that question, because well, in mirror, like I know you haven't used mirror, right?
No.
Like so how it works is if you want like a networked object, whether that's like a player or a projectile that belongs to a player, and it needs to be on all machines, and you know it needs to have someone owning it. Where that's usually the server. Like for example, the projectile hits you. Only the server actually checks the collision and checks like it's this player, deal damage to them. Because if you let clients take over that stuff, then it's really easy to cheat. And the client side logic, they could have like a different version of the game where the code's different, and that would break the game. And you don't want your game to be that like fragile. If a client's on a different version, one, you should try kicking them when they connect. Like, but you can never guarantee that because they could lie about which version they're on. There's so many things you got to think about.
Seriously,
it depends like how much you care. If you're making like a casual party game for friends, you won't care about people hacking and cheating. Maybe you will, but you don't have to, right? If you're focused on just having the fun aspect, but generally you should try and have like as much logic on the server because it's the only thing you can actually trust, and it's where all like the true data is. The data is stored on the server and synced to clients for the most part. Now I'm trying to think. So that question about inheritance, well, what happens is you, instead of inheriting mono behavior, you'd inherit network behavior, and you get all these like callbacks for like on start server, on start client, on stop server, on stop client, and all these other things. So you can say like run this code instead of just in the start method, run it like effectively when it starts on the server or on the client or both. Or there's plenty of other things you can do. You can check who has authority over this object. Does it belong to this client? Network connections. If you want to make a multiplayer game, like you need to first know how to make a single player game because it's just the same but more complex. It's just more like layers added on top. I know a lot of people might try jumping in to make their first game as multiplayer, but it usually backfires. Well, you said, yeah, like roll the ball and then FPS multiplayer online. Yeah.
Just head straight into deep water.
I mean, you know, you go for it and you realize, you know, I'll come back here later, maybe. It's maybe a bit too much for right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, composition in general is what I'd recommend for most things. Like, I'm trying to think, when do I inherit classes? Like how often? Apart from mono behavior, of course, because you need that to be a component. But what else do I inherit? Honestly, not that much. Most of the time, if I'm making a player and, or like, I'm trying to think, because I used to do a lot of inheritance till I realized the whole composition inheritance, like it's generally better and easier to expand upon, sticking on new components rather than making like a big component built on top of another big component that just gets bigger and more messy. Like when I used to make like a projectile class that had damage to deal, slow amounts, and like damage over time. Like I had every little thing a projectile could do just in one projectile class.
Yeah.
And then I inherited it for like fireball, and it would, I don't know, it was
like
so dumb.
Doesn't even apply,
yeah, it doesn't even make sense for this thing. And then after a while, I looked back on it and I was like, I was so stupid back then. But I shouldn't look at it like that. I was learning back then. And then, yeah. Have we got anything else? Because
someone was asking about my balloons clone. So right now I'm kind of working on a project. It's I'm basically making a clone of the balloons tower defense game, the original one. And basically kind of the goal with the project was to kind of make it as if I was making like a really large scale project. So just, you know, being just really smart about how I structure everything and kind of give myself the ability in the future to, you know, expand upon it. Just really using like good, solid coding practices throughout. And so, you know, it's obviously it's a simple game, so I could make it in like a quick little game jam format if I wanted to. But this, I'm really just trying to, you know, just use the best like coding practices that I can and really taking my time with it. So it's been going well. Been having fun with it.
I feel like if your goal is to like practice programming paradigms and code best practices and all that stuff, it is good to pick like a simple game because then you're focused on what you're trying to do, which is practice the paradigms and architecture.
Exactly.
And all that stuff. And you don't have to think about the game. It's already designed for you. Like, sure,
yes, exactly.
A lot of people will be like, no, I want to focus on the game design and not think about the code stuff, which is what most people do most of the time. But yeah, if you know like, oh yeah, balloons, it's easy and you've just got balloons and they get popped, and then place towers down and whatever, and then you want to make it like, it's such a simple game, but it's a question of how have you made the project? Have you made it so that I come along tomorrow and say we need a tower that does this, and you're like, easy, and then you just do it without having to be like, oh no, like I need to make these 10 new scripts that inherit from this, and then no, and
whereas with this, I have my goals well defined, and I can just focus on actually implementing it rather than thinking about the game design aspects of it, and if it's going to be like a fun mechanic and all that. It's been a good learning experience for me, and I've been kind of making some tutorial videos on interesting little things that I've came across while developing.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Time is it? 22. Okay, we can keep going a bit longer. What have we got here? We've got a link here that Mick shared. I think we could put it in the chat too, about the splines, but it's not an official thing. It's about creating your own. Yeah. I took a look at that. Excuse me.
This was like an official Unity thing built in. Like it would just be like right in the editor there. It's like literally a button you could click and just kind of start drawing out splines.
Yeah, and then I imagine there'd be some easy like class, like you could just reference the spline class, and then I don't know, somehow, like you say, spawning enemies over it, or doing something over it, because it is a general purpose. I mean, I've never in my own projects ever felt the need like I need a spline to solve this problem, but at the same time I've seen plenty of like they are cool for certain things, or they are useful for certain things. I think one of the main uses is it's a good way to like easily edit at runtime. I mean, yeah, I'm sure. What would be the main use of it be if you had to think of like what would be the main use of a spline?
I mean, just for me with like say that Bloons tower defense clone that I can make right now, my paths are just straight lines. You know, you're going up, down, left, right, and all that.
Yeah.
But with splines, you can make kind of more sweeping paths and stuff.
Yeah, I'm guessing.
So that's one good use.
Like splines, you can make. Is it easy to make like sharp corners, like turns? I'm guessing.
Yeah, with splines.
Because obviously your map might want like a sharp turn and then goes into like a bend. So yeah, I can imagine it is good.
Yeah, for... sure there are like extra handles, so you can kind of like determine how steep of an angle you have at each vertex.
Yeah. So yeah, that is a good example of making a predefined path of something, because I mean, you can do it right now, coding your own solution and stuff. But a lot of these things that you can do yourself kind of make sense for a game engine to have out the box, like multiplayer, but also like localization and let's say like shader stuff and like the graph and whatever else. I mean, obviously all the stuff we've had for ages, colliders, physics. You don't expect yourself, or you're not expected to make your own physics engine because it's just expected. And I guess splines is one of those things. I think it's like probably less requested than most other things, but it's still something you'd be like, oh, it's weird they don't have that out the box. I think anyway. I don't know, but like you said, if you saw it in an official post, then maybe it's out or maybe it's coming soon. I'm not 100% sure. What's this? Multiplayer. Wait. Oh, someone asked single player to multiplayer or multiplayer from scratch, as in like, should they make a single player game then convert it to multiplayer, or I don't know. Do you want to talk about this first? I know I'd probably do more of the multiplayer stuff, but I'll let you answer it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's kind of a tough one because it's like, is your game inherently designed around multiplayer? Because if it is, then it's probably better to just start with multiplayer, and you want to start testing the multiplayer aspects of it as soon as possible. But if it's a game that I don't know, could it kind of benefit from you testing out those mechanics in a single player environment, which would be much easier to create and test, then you can definitely start out with the single player. Make sure that main core gameplay loop is fun, make sure the mechanics work well with each other, get that thoroughly tested, and then you can kind of start looking into adding in multiplayer stuff after that.
Yeah, I'd say the answer for the most part is definitely start multiplayer from the ground up, but I guess there might be the odd cases where you can, like you say, test the game loop and get like a quick prototype working in single player to test if it's fun. But most games that are multiplayer work because they're multiplayer, so to test them you kind of need multiplayer.
Yeah, I guess it kind of depends. Maybe if you're making like a multiplayer PvE type game, you can test a lot of that PvE interactions just in a single player environment.
I guess, yeah. It's just the problem that, like, I know from one of the consultancy projects I've been doing, they'd made the game entirely single player, and they knew they wanted to make it multiplayer at some point, but they made it single player, and then they went to convert it, and they had a lot of stuff to convert. And the thing is, as soon as you start making it a multiplayer project and you change one class to be a networked behavior, it can break a lot of things. So in terms of like which is easier for you, like it's definitely easier to start from scratch. And let's say you did make a single player project as like a demo, I would just keep that on the side, make a new project and work from the ground up, adding those things across, rather than taking this project and like going into the code and modifying it, which it's a mess.
That's a really good point. I think that's just kind of good advice for prototyping in general is, kind of once you have like that little kind of demo figured out, most of the time it's better to just start a new project, because chances are that you kind of learned a lot of things in that prototyping phase that you realize that you should be doing a different way. So a lot of times it's easier to kind of start from scratch. And of course you can reuse a lot of that logic that you've already created, but just kind of with the knowledge of how to structure things a little better.
Yep. I think that's a good answer. And I think we should answer one more question. We've got, another 5 minutes until it's oh wait. Actually no, I'm looking at the time of the stream, but that doesn't like we started the stream like 10 minutes early. So actually we've got a bit longer we can go for. How many more questions have we got lined up? So what's the earliest project?
Chat's pretty active.
What's the earliest project you can remember working on?
So I don't remember kind of how old I was, but I was probably like maybe like early into high school or something like that. And I was just kind of like messing around a little bit with like Flash games. And I made this like simple little project where it was just basically kind of like a cutout of me like on a skateboard, and I just was kind of moving around the screen a little bit. So that was like probably like the earliest thing that I did. But then, I also mentioned that my first like actual game project for a college course, that was that like multiplayer first person shooter game that I made called Mandatory Vengeance.
You say you did that with Photon? Or was that
Photon?
Yeah. See, my first project, like the first thing I ever worked on wasn't like something I came up with. I followed some kind of tutorial of some kind, and it was in Game Maker. I'm pretty sure I used Game Maker before Unity for sure. It's been a while.
Did you do that tutorial where it's like the plane flying over the ocean and you're kind of like shooting those
no,
like enemies?
I think the first thing.
That one?
Have you seen the guy? I think I have seen it, or at least that type of game, but I don't think that's the tutorial I followed. I think I followed one by Heartbeast. He made like a.
Oh, okay.
Do you know who that is?
Yeah. I've seen his channel. Yeah.
Yeah, back when I started getting into the game dev stuff and looking at Game Maker, he was making tutorials at that time. I think he stopped for a while, then he came back, but I think he's moved on to Godot now.
You're right.
Back then he was doing Game Maker stuff, and he made a little game where you've got a little character, and it's like a top-down 2D hack and slash kind of thing. And I didn't end up implementing that many mechanics and stuff, and the series was really short, but it did help teach a lot of things, and that got me interested. But as for first project that I actually did, that was my own idea and not just following a tutorial, I think I did have the ambitious goal of let's make that single player RPG, like not a big MMO, just have some hotbar inventory ability, similar mechanics you'd expect in this type of games. And I actually made quite a bit of it. Now it was probably really bad code, and I've abandoned it a long time ago. But I had like this cool staff where you can click on an object. I can't remember the exact way the mechanic worked, but you could like click on an object and it would like make a puff of smoke and it would disappear and it would reappear somewhere else. And it would work on enemies too, I think. I can't remember like how I did the detection for can this thing be teleported. I probably had some really crude way of doing it, but because I'm imagining I could just click on like a tree or a wall and it would just get teleported. But no, I think it was a bit more. I think it was a bit more robust than that. And I had like the simple fireball thing, and I made some kind of like missiles magic attack where instead of just one straight projectile, it's like homing multiple little projectiles. So I made like a few little, and the code I did have probably a script per like attack, and probably copy pasted a lot of the logic for spawning stuff in, and but it was a fun first project, and everyone's first project is bad. Or
Oh, yeah.
by bad, it's like it's good that you did it, but it's like you would never release it. is the way to look at it.
I popped open the first game that I released was another college project. It was kind of like a 2D platforming type game. We just released it on the Google Play Store, and I recently popped it open to just kind of like look through all my scripts and everything, and it was just horrible. I'm like, why am I putting like this logic over here? Like there was like no sense to any of it. It was pretty hilarious.
Yeah, I don't like looking back on projects from a couple of weeks ago. Never mind a year ago.
Seriously.
Yeah. All right, we've got like 10 minutes before we're gonna say bye. So maybe we answer 1 or 2 more questions and then wrap it up. So
cool.
It depends. We got any new questions? Are Roblox games a viable way of learning? I'm a C# coder, but Roblox is in Lua. See, Roblox, I know it's got a bad rep. I mean, I played it like when it first came out. I was so young. I don't know. I was in primary school, which is like between 4 and 11 here. So
okay.
I was like, let's say, I don't know, somewhere in the middle, 7 years old or something. I played a bit of Roblox. I never looked into the like design aspect. I was too young to think about, I want to do game design or game developing or programming or any of that at 7 years old. But I do like remember having a look back at it within the last year or so to see how it works, because I know a lot of people, make their own custom game modes in there, and it's pretty designer or developer friendly. But because I've never had a go at it, like properly at least, I can't really say how good it is for learning game development. I'm sure it is good, but it's not to say that like if you learn it, then you go to Unity and everything's just obvious to you. You'll probably have to like learn the engine's completely different.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things, again, same with like Game Maker or visual scripting. I think it's probably a great way to learn the logic of, what it takes to like actually make a game. What are some of the considerations that you need to make? But yeah, I mean, it just kind of depends on if you do want to make a Unity project later on, then maybe just kind of start with Unity.
Yeah.
But I'm sure Roblox has a bunch of like cool built-in assets that you can play with, so that's probably a benefit of that as well.
Yeah, if you're wanting to just get into the design, you already have, I think, there's like a massive toolbox of default assets you can use, and I think they have like effectively an asset store thing where you can just download free things people have put on there. I don't know if there's like also a paid store, and I don't know how the like ecosystem of it all works.
Yeah,
but
I'm not familiar.
I'm pretty sure you can just like jump in, drag in a car, and have like a vehicle system already kind of made for you. There's some like built-in things that work. There's like respawning already in there, and there's other various things. But yeah, like as you said with visual scripting and that kind of stuff, it's a good way to get into it. Like if you're starting off and you're not comfortable diving into just C# pure coding in an IDE. So yeah, it's not necessarily for everyone, but it's definitely for some people. So I wouldn't say like don't do it, it's bad, because you'll get a false sense of like, what it's actually like. As long as you don't like stick to it too long. If you do want to do Unity at some point, the earlier the better, once you're comfortable, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, we'll take one more question. What do you think about Unity UI Builder or UI Toolkit? Do you know anything about this?
Did you do a tutorial on it recently?
Yeah.
That's all that I've seen.
Oh, okay. I mean, it's going to be like more web developer friendly. It's going to feel like that because there's like CSS in there, or is it USS, which is like a subscript of CSS with more stuff. The design makes more sense, and again, the thing I see people saying negatively about it is I'll have to learn this whole new thing and it's so complicated just to get the same simple thing done. But in reality, it's not actually more complicated to get the same thing done. The only problems I had when trying to do the tutorial were some bugs. It's an early preview, and like the editor window was really awkward with me. Like I tried to like change the width for something and it changed, and then like I hit save, and then like it just like snapped back to the size it was before I saved, and then I hit undo, but it didn't go back, and I was like, oh, okay, I have to go through and change everything again. I was losing my tempo. I was thinking I'm not doing a video today because this is just never gonna work. I restarted Unity and like gave it another shot, and it worked. I had to be very careful I didn't touch a certain button and break everything, but I'm sure like when it's actually meant to be ready, it'll be a lot better. Like let's say your logic is put in a button, you click the button, you call a function. You do it differently, but it's the same amount of work really. I mean, right now there's no way to like click add and drag in a function callback like you can on a Unity button. But I imagine that's something they'll add, because it's going to be weird to not have that anymore. You can, however, write a script that subscribes to the button click callback. Like, you can still make a button click do a function. It's just like a bit different. And I think they said like the performance is going to be better, and they needed to kind of build it from the ground up anyway, because they need to support dots, because the current UI system is completely game objects like from the ground up. So getting it to work with dots is not right. The new stuff works completely differently. I don't know yet how it works with dots, but yeah, again, that's one of the reasons they've done it, is so it can support both. So yeah, it's very early, and I've had a little play, and I think it's good for people to understand how it works now, even if they're not going to use it now. So when it does come out, they already know. Same with dots. If you're not going to use it now, but you understand the work, like how the data works and how to do all the components and entities and things, then when it does come out, you're already pretty familiar with it. So I think it's good to get a head start, I guess. I think that's all I can say about it. I'm not using it in any of my projects right now, apart from like testing and messing around. But yeah, again, preview versions, especially early preview versions, are a bit temperamental and can break and change as well.
I'm pretty familiar with the current UI setup. They just started introducing this UI setup as I started getting involved with Unity. Because before that it was the whole like UGUI stuff, which is that that the gray boxes with the white text and everything.
Yeah, I've never used that apart from Mirror has it as like a default HUD for joining a server and like hosting a server.
That's how Photon was as well. Yeah,
and then like as soon as I've built my own main menu, I just turn that off or remove the component, because I have my own buttons to do that. But I guess it's really quick for just getting something working. Well, you don't have to like add a canvas and all that stuff.
Yeah, and they still keep it around for exactly like debug menus and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's definitely got its uses. Doesn't look the nicest, but it works.
Right.
And yeah, I think we'll end it there. We got like from 3 minutes before 8, or my 8. So yeah, I think we'll end it there. Like I said, thanks everyone for watching. We've gone for the full 2 hours. I think we've answered pretty much every question we had. Yeah, pretty much. Obviously, if you have more questions, or you get some questions between now and next week, then check back then. I'm not going to guarantee which date it'll be on, because we might have the same thing again. So as soon as I will post the schedule on the channel as soon as I know. Could be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'm guessing it'll probably be Tuesday, but we'll have to see about that. I still need to find someone for next week. But I've got a few people in mind, so fingers crossed some of them are up for it. But yeah, thanks Johnny for tuning in to, well, not tuning into the stream, but being a part of the stream, co-host or whatever you want to be known as. But yeah, I think
thank you so much, Nathan. I appreciate we were able to get this to work out. I know it was kind of a last minute thing, but it was a ton of fun.
Yeah, thanks for filling in where no one else could do the stream this week. I don't want to make you feel like you were like the last there. I was just like, all right, this person can't do it. All right, look through people who might be interested. And then I thought, oh, you might be interested, and we have like similar stuff to talk about with dots and stuff. Like I thought a good conversation. And yeah, people seem to enjoy it, and I think quite a lot of people got their questions answered. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks Johnny for being a part of it, and I think we'll end it there. So check out down below the link to Johnny's channel, Turbo Makes Games, and you're on my channel watching this, so it's all there. And yeah, I think that was the link you put below, right, as your channel, and then they can find out all your other stuff from there. So yeah, go check him out. And yeah, thanks everyone for watching. So goodbye.
Cool, appreciate that. Yeah, thanks for everyone for hanging out. Take care.
Bye.